Okay, so just working through some of the technology here. I'm looking forward to bringing on Tom Deans for our interview and discussion around every family's business. So let us just get the technology to work out. Let's bring on Tom and hope it all goes smoothly here. So just hang in there.
All right. Well, I am very excited for this next segment in the Coiled Spring E-Summit, where we have Tom Deans, who is an incredible authority on the topic of every family's business and engaging the next generation and all of those complexities. The first word that comes to mind when I think of Tom Deans is credibility, because he has lived this firsthand. He and his family had a successful business and then a successful liquidity event. And by successful, I'm not just referring to the economics, but the family harmony and chemistry was left intact and probably even amplified. And Tom came to realize that that's not always the case. And he wanted to capture his experience because in the scenario of a family business changing hands, being acquired, and all of those cascading issues, they're either examples or warnings. Examples to learn from and replicate, and warnings to avoid. You can learn from them too. But some of you know I recommend a book called Beer Money. It's a great case study on unintended consequences that come from privilege. I've said to my kids, privilege is being born on third base. Entitlement is thinking you hit a triple. And I mean, as a dad, I'm trying to create a great foundation for my kids. But again, there's unintended consequences that come with that. You want to create the safety net, but sometimes the safety net can become a bit of a hammock. Tom is going to show you how to harness two incredibly powerful forces: demography and commoditization. So the point of this conversation here is how a fee-for-service professional can increase their fee worthiness, become indispensable to a family tree as you go up market and deal with very fluid and complex needs, and then decommoditize your value as you're achieving professional contrast. Now, in the world of a financial advisor, especially based on what we've been going through for the last several months, there's a bit of a fallacy that the goal of a financial advisor is to help a client achieve and then maintain financial independence. That's just a part of the value. Some of you have heard me use the scenario or the analogy of the Sherpa. The goal is not to get the climber to the summit, it's to get them back down. Getting to the summit can be anticlimactic. Most climbers spend less than 10 or 15 minutes savoring the win, and many get in trouble on the way down. So the concept of continuity, succession, and family investment legacy, that's what we're here to talk about. Now, Tom, I thought I was a gypsy. When I read Every Family's Business, I saw that you've done over 1,000 speeches in 25 countries. I mean, and you still look remarkably fresh. I mean, that's not easy.
It was not easy, Duncan. And I think unless author and speaker has a deep, deep passion for their material and feel like they're making a difference, you can do 500 speeches. But to do 1,000, I just know that what I experienced running our family business was unique, and our family history is a little bit unique. And I just felt like my gift. I'm pretty good at making plastics, but I'm way better at taking this message and sharing it and compelling families to start talking about this stuff, because the silence around the transition of these family businesses, this estimated $10 trillion, it's grinding on relationships. It's disaster. And there's never been a better time for advisors to insert themselves and start these important conversations.
Absolutely. And I couldn't agree more. I mean, entrepreneurs by nature typically don't do it for the money. The money is sort of a byproduct. It really is about a calling and a purpose. But I know in speaking to you several times in the last few months, I mean, we joke that I can't wait to get back on the road so I can relax a little bit, right? Because we've been so busy doing things like this. But again, very fulfilling and rewarding and having an impact. Just right up front, the thing, I mean, first of all, both of your books, Every Family's Business and Willing Wisdom, are very well written, very to the point, very engaging. But most importantly, they're actionable. You don't talk about talking about things. You provide an actionable blueprint that people can translate into results. And what I love is the dual track that you've found, because you have two addressable audiences. You have the financial advisor himself or herself. Often, they themselves have continuity and succession and family investment legacy issues. So you're asking them to consider those issues themselves and then make themselves indispensable to their clients that have these issues that are coming to the forefront very, very quickly. The next 5 to 10 years, as you've mentioned, the money that will go into motion and the landmines that can exist in that are profound. So I applaud you for the niche that you carved out and the way the world is gravitating to what you've created. So yeah, kudos on that.
Well, thank you, Duncan. Appreciate it.
Just right up front, at a minimum, the people listening in should consider reading your books. What is the best way for them to reach you?
Well, everyone goes to Amazon. Amazon, I mean, you can get the book there, but they're slow, believe it or not. And so come right to my website. We have bulk discounts for advisors, and the shipping is free. We make it so easy.
And that website again, just remind everybody, we'll send.
It's the title of the book, everyfamiliesbusiness.com and willingwisdom.com.
Yeah, terrific. Yep. And I'm really excited about some of the digital implementation solutions that your team and ours have been working on that we'll be unveiling shortly, that advisors can make available to their clients so that scalable reach can be achieved. So what I'd like to do is just continue the conversation. I've got some questions I'd like to present for you, and I'm really excited about what the audience can do with this information in terms of building this into their deliverables. So, Tom, up front, what do you feel is the biggest unmet need that advisors can address with the first generation affluent business owners, professionals, and executives?
Well, I think that big unmet need is starting conversations that are just not being had. When you look at the natural bias in the marketplace, it's overwhelmingly for business owners to be left with this idea that it's their job to continue the business in family hands. And in fact, if they don't, somehow they're diminished. They've somehow let themselves down. They've diminished the value of their legacy. They've let their family down. They've let their community down. Often they're providing employment. And I come along and I go, oh, no, that's not your job. Your job actually is to imagine that your business is a balance sheet and it goes up or down in value. And in fact, what your job is to do is actually to find the next generation of owners, whether that's in your family or outside, who is going to take that asset and grow it. I mean, always asking the question, in whose hands will my business create more value? And if the answer comes back, not family, then it's the job of the entrepreneur to explore outside options. And so it's really just starting conversations. Silence is the great destroyer of family business wealth. If not families that talk about this, it's the families that are so overwhelmed by the magnitude of the conversation that they put it off, they procrastinate, and it's never had. And we have business owners every day dying at their desk, leaving a mess for surviving family to figure out, including huge tax liabilities and all sorts of family dynamics that are not healthy.
So building that into the advisor's process, future pacing and showing a client where things are going and the consequences that can come from that. And then laying out a methodical, predictable approach to address those issues, to remove the dynamic of a business owner trying to impose or manufacture their views and legacy on someone, and just letting market forces prevail and just being at peace with those outcomes. So effectively giving a family member first right of refusal, but not trying to force the issue.
Exactly. There's so much wealth and emotional invested capital in these businesses that for a business owner to be given permission by a third party, like a trusted financial advisor, to explore an outside sale, I mean, do you know how rare that is? I mean, most advisors are tepid. They're tepid around this subject. They feel that it's not their place to kind of push and provoke and to encourage these conversations around the transition of business. It feels awkward and dangerous. And so the advisors leave it alone. They leave it for some other allied professional to pick up the conversation. But we both know that if you're the accountant or you're the attorney, you're the lawyer, and the business gets sold, what happens to the file? Often those allied professionals, those centers of influence, are actually equally ambivalent about starting this conversation, so they leave it alone. Everyone's leaving the subject of the business transition, they're leaving it alone because they're so overwhelmed by the magnitude of the complexity. And the reality is, it's not a great place. It's not a happy place to be 75 years old with 80%, tens of millions of dollars of your personal net worth wrapped up in one stock that no one wants to talk about how it's going to end. So you can see that the advisor with the courage and the conviction, who has done their own work, has answered the question, how will my book a business transition? How they can have that confidence to take it forward into those conversations with high net worth business owners. Man, they virtually have no competition.
Well, and I know you've met many advisors like this as well. I admire these incredibly successful advisors who have kids and other proteges, could be nephews, nieces, who sort of gravitate toward the business because they see the lifestyle it's created. The offices are beautiful. And these parents insist that they go out and cut their teeth, go become a wholesaler, go intern at another firm, and just get some proportion and context for what the real world is like. So I'm all for you drafting in behind and getting ready to take this torch. But I want you to come in enlightened, respectful of what we've created, and just aware of what this is in terms of a culture and a responsibility. I really admire that, because it would be much easier for those parents to just sort of let the kids come in and then nepotism does its thing, and there's no winners. I mean, it disrupts the team dynamics, creates resentment, and of course, that's where the safety net becomes a hammock pretty quickly. So I know you've met those advisors too.
Absolutely, and I would add further, Duncan, that if you really go back into the history of the founders of the great financial practitioners, I mean, really what makes them great is that journey. It's the adversity and the failure and the pick yourself back up and the grinding and the constant, I'm going to say it again, grinding, right? Then fast forward, you've got the beautiful office, you've got that great book of business, but then we forget all that adversity. We just look at all the awesomeness, right? And you can see how counterintuitive it is for someone who's wealthy to look at their children and say, I don't want them to go through what I went through. That was a rough, brutal ride. So what do? They create shortcuts for their children. And those kids are soft. They're soft and they're not driven, right? We rob something. We steal something authentic from our children. We take away their opportunity to grind at whatever it is that lights their fire. It's hard. It's hard when we have wealth and when we can offer our children head starts.
I love the fact that you have virtually no filter in terms of saying things that are a little uncomfortable. I mean, for somebody to come out and say that I'm robbing or depriving my kid of experiential learning, I mean, that can make people uncomfortable. But I'm a dad. I can relate 100%. We don't like to see our kids struggle or suffer, but purpose and self-awareness and the pursuit of self-actualization, that's where it's born, in that grit, that adversity. So I applaud you for being so forthright and insisting on the integrity of congruency, right? Walking a talk, living it, not just talking about it theoretically. That's a major part of your own professional points of difference. So thanks for that.
Well, I appreciate that, Duncan. I would add that, if you look into the history of some of the great American industrial stories and industrial families, I mean, the real hero in the Henry Ford story is sure Henry Ford, but also his father. His father was a farmer. If Henry Ford's father was wedded to this idea that the only definition of a successful family farming operation is for my son to continue my family farm, we'd never have the Ford Motor Company or Microsoft or Apple, right? Somewhere along the way, their parents said, listen, it's okay for you to go out and do something and pivot and do something different from our family's history. In fact, you do it with our blessing and our encouragement, and even more so, you do it with access to our family capital. Now, that is a gracious idea and a long way away from, hey, Tom, we've been making shoes for 50 years, and even the unborn are going to be making shoes in our family because that's who we are. We're a shoemaking family. I mean, can you see how dispiriting that is and what a contrast that is to Henry Ford?
Well, and you see this, I know you like sports. I like sports. We're starting to see the next generation of athletes, right? The kids of really immense superstars. And you can tell the parents didn't want it more than the kid, because the kids are carving out their own niche and position, and it's very, very compelling. And so, not to stray too far off topic here, but I like the symbolism there. So let's get back on track here, because this is so important in an advisor's pursuit of positioning themselves as a personal CFO for a family, right? The complete family office. They have to understand the distinction between referring a client out to another service provider versus engaging those service providers into the process. So can you share with us how have advisors engaged strategic partners? How has it helped strengthen those relationships to create a better client experience and more advocacy?
Yeah, no, it's a really good point, Duncan. And I have seen many, many examples where the financial advisor, if they don't possess that detailed, granular skill when it comes to business succession planning, they don't relinquish and walk away from the subject. They're smart enough to look about their own community and find the expert, but they still own the process. They still own the family meeting. They still work with their client to draft the agenda. They still, book the meeting rooms. They like right down to the detail. They're driving the meeting, and they bring in. They're the maestro, right? Bring in. Come on in, investment banker. Come on in, special expert on business valuation. I'm going to do my research and due diligence on behalf of my client. Like that advisor is adding so much value. They become so essential to that family's success that they not only get the business owner's business, they get the next generation as well. Because the next generation is watching that it's that crucial role that advisor is playing to protect family money. Where is it? It's in the business. It's in the retained earnings of these businesses that the kids don't want. I mean, this is a big, long view of how dynastic family wealth is created and preserved in transition. It's through the family meeting.
I want to go a little further into that in a moment, but it strikes me as being self-evident that CPAs, attorneys, and other fee-for-service, knowledge-for-profit professionals, they've got their own continuity and succession and family investment legacy issues
Yes,
as
they
well
do.
that they've been probably putting off. So I can only assume that they probably perk up and start to notice, okay, this advisor's cracked the code here. Have you seen examples where that's engaged those professional relationships further as well?
Oh my goodness. I'm often brought in as a speaking resource into family meetings. So I'm meeting these accountants. I'm meeting these attorneys, these lawyers inside these family meetings. And I'm watching them watch what's happening. And I can't be left with anything but that impression that they're going, oh my gosh, no one's doing this. I don't know any other financial advisor who is sitting down on a quarterly basis in the early days and then moving to annual meetings and keeping minutes and opening up dialogue between family members so that there's transparency around these business succession plans and estate plans. They're just left with the impression that there's only one really talented advisor in the community. So yeah, not only do they become referable, they are referred. And the product becomes not their ability to pick stocks. That's a commodity, especially these days, right? There's an algorithm for everything. I'll tell you what the product becomes. It becomes the family meeting itself. It becomes this holistic approach to gathering family members and advisors. And I'm not talking just about accountants and lawyers and professional evaluators. I'm talking about specialists on addiction, marriage counseling, all the challenges and the complexities that visit a family that impact the protection of family wealth over 100 years. Smart advisors are resourcing those families. They're not ashamed of it. They're not ashamed of it at all. I mean, families are challenged and most of them are broken.
So an advisor's positioning, so that they're not pitching this as an idea, they're positioning it as part of the process. So engaging those professionals, that could be positioned as the seventh pillar of value-added service. But again, it's not just an intent, it's not just service or advice, it's part of the process. So I think of, so we all know Warren Buffett's quote, right? The tide goes out, you can see who's swimming naked. His partner, Charlie Munger, said, show me the incentive, I'll show you the outcome. So the incentive for the advisor to engage in this is firewalling the relationship, capturing money in motion, engaging the next gen. But why has it been so revealing that so many have been swimming naked? Like, why Why have they put it off? Why haven't they done that? Is it just a mystery? They didn't know how, or it was just easier not to do? Like, it would appear that this should be obvious. They should be doing this.
I think it's primarily intimidation. A lot of advisors are simply intimidated by the great business owner who has built a 20 million, 30 million, 50 million, $100 million business. And then the advisor comes in, could be a wildly successful advisor, but they look at that business owner and they go, this cat's in a different league from me. They've created so much wealth. Who am I to wade in and challenge them and provoke them to do something that feels uncomfortable, which is ask the hard question. Hey, Larry, how are you going to get this $50 million out of this business before you die? How are you going to do that? Because if you don't do that, you're going to die, and you're going to, maybe you've got a 50% chance of having a will, but you're going to leave all sorts of challenges and complexities for other family members to sort through. You're going to be remembered, Larry, just not fondly. And by the way, Larry doesn't just have to die. 1 in 3 Americans over the age of 65 are starting to present some symptoms of dementia. I mean, we've got business owners who have got a staggering amount of wealth in a business, well over 80% of their wealth in an operating business with no plan. And imagine now, we're in the middle of this crazy period of time, which we will emerge from, but I'll tell you, to build on your metaphor, yeah, there's a lot of people swimming naked. A lot of business owners who are in their 70s with a lot of their wealth wrapped up in that family business that is very close to being destroyed, and they are not happy. They're not happy with themselves. Most people, when they're angry, they're usually angry at themselves. But they're also looking around at their advisors and saying, how could people have let me do what I did? How foolish. No one would have let a 70-year-old put 80% of their wealth in one stock or one asset class, never mind one stock, right? I mean, it's just crazy how intimidated advisors are when they come to business owners. They shouldn't be. They have to understand that they have a professional duty to themselves and to their profession to ask these hard questions. And you know what? The business owners are waiting for them. They are waiting, and they are desperate for someone like that to walk through the door and challenge them and help them with the most vexing challenge in business. Not how to get in, not how to make more money, but how to get out. How to get out. They don't know. They're stuck.
Okay, so that's profound, because didn't want to rock the boat, potentially disrupt the relationship, didn't know how to position it, so the advisor became his or her own best kept secret. But as you were talking, it occurred to me, when I read The Millionaire Next Door, Tom Stanley was suggesting that an affluent business owner client, before engaging an advisor, should ask for the advisor's financial net worth and balance sheet and documentation to just know if they're consistent and congruent themselves. And for a lot of advisors, that would be, they'd be put on defense to experience that. But if an advisor is forthright and proactive and basically said, look, this is who I am, this is where I stand, and they position their own continuity and succession approach, like I've addressed it myself, I've cracked the code and developed a process to help my clients address it themselves. Again, it's bought, not sold, right? The advisor says, finally, or sorry, the client says, finally, I've been waiting to address this, and I probably should have done it 10 years ago, but let's get this done now. That's actually profound. I've got one.
Yeah, fire away.
And again, I know you've adapted over the last little while and working probably just as hard as you were before. But here's my question. What is the best way for advisors to adapt themselves as we start to emerge from this bizarre episode? Like, what are the silver linings and takeaways that advisors can apply that you've noticed will be evergreen into the future?
Well, you know, like your business and like my business, we had capacity problems. I had over 400 takeoff and landings last year. I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, it's just crazy. Think of the advisor who has capacity problems. So think of now that isolated high net worth client who still wants to be connected to their advisor and understand what their plan is for growing their wealth and protecting it and transitioning it in a calm, predictable, transparent way. I mean, think of the opportunities with technology now to have a quick call, a quick Zoom call with a client. Think of advisors who are driving through traffic, spending 3-4 hours a day in their car when that's gone. And don't think that the clients don't want this. Like they're a B client because you did a Zoom call. That's done. That ship has set sail. A lot of clients are saying, you know what? Hey, I would love the one-to-one, face-to-face, coffee, and the whole lunch thing. But you know what? I'm busy. In fact, I'm super busy. Let's do this 15, 20-minute Zoom. Let's bang it out. Let's get down to business. I think what advisors are going to find is the business owners are actually out in front of them. They're doing Zoom calls in their business already. Now they're just going to want to pull their advisors along into this kind of new modernity. And I think that is the way it's going to go. I think this is an exciting time for advisors who are going to have so much capacity, so much ability to do different kinds of work, add more value virtually through webinars, adding content to the client relationships. Those are easy. And very few advisors are going to make the leap. The good news is the ones that do, they're going to have less and less competition, and there are going to be few of them hunting really great clients. There's a huge amount of consolidation. This pandemic is creating a unique opportunity. The strong are going to get stronger. The weak are going to pivot into irrelevancy, and watch what happens. I just think this is the best time to be an advisor. There's so many relationships that are in motion. The really smart, aggressive, entrepreneurial advisor that's adopting technology is going to eat a lot of advisors' lunch. It's an exciting time.
Very, very well said. And as you know, throughout this e-summit, we've got a pretty deep bench of talent who's going to cover a lot of that ground. And I could not agree more in terms of what this is all going to reveal in the future. I know we're only scratching the surface here. So just as a wrap up and a call to action, again, at a minimum, to create your own blueprint as a successful fee-for-service professional who can become indispensable to the complex needs of a first-generation business owner, professional, or executive. Get Every Family's Business. Just go to Tom's website, everyfamiliesbusiness.com. Read that book and just immerse that, embed that into your process. Adopt the 7 pillars, 1 process positioning, position that value add, and start to reframe your relationships. If you want to go deeper into the family meeting that Tom is talking about, you can DIY that, or you can engage Tom to facilitate it. That third-party credibility is immense. And again, it can be done virtually, and Tom has proven that out. And then just around the corner, the digitization of Tom's process into a learning management system that you can provide to a client as a value add will competitor-proof those relationships and get you out in front of that money in motion. So watch for that. But Tom, I know I'm assuming that we're both going to get back on the road here sooner than later. I know you're going to manage that and balance it with your virtual deliverables as well. But I have to tell you, every single time we communicate, it's an absolute pleasure for me. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Duncan. I reciprocate. I mean, just your line of questioning, the content that you're providing for advisors is really, really valuable, especially now. Good for you.
Yeah, excellent, Tom. Okay, we're going to move on with the rest of the summit, but thanks very much. Everybody, you'll get information on how to contact Tom, and watch for these deliverables down the road. Okay, so Tom, make it a great day. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Duncan.